Good evening, everyone. Myself Deepika, studying second MBBS. Today, let us understand the physiology of coronary circulation. In this session, we are going to learn about the coronary blood vessels, the coronary blood flow, special features of the coronary blood flow, factors affecting the coronary blood flow, and finally, the coronary artery disease. So, before that, why does the heart need its own blood supply despite the whole body blood enters the heart? The reason behind this is the thickness of the heart musculature. The heart musculature is so thick that the whole body blood entering into the heart could supply only about 1/10 millimeter of the musculature. So the heart requires its own blood supply. Coming to the coronary blood vessels, it has coronary artery and coronary veins. First thing, coronary arteries. The coronary arteries arise from the aortic sinus, from the arch of aorta. It has anterior and the posterior aortic sinuses, and the posterior further has the right and the left parts. So the right coronary artery arises from the anterior aortic sinus, and the left coronary artery arises from the left posterior aortic sinus. So this is arch of aorta. This is the anterior aortic sinus. From here, the right coronary artery will arise, and this is the left posterior aortic sinus. The left coronary artery arises. Both the arteries end by anastomosing with each other. And a point to be noted here is that the left coronary artery divides into the circumflex artery and the left anterior descending artery. This left anterior descending artery further gives a branch called diagonal artery. So, the coronary arteries arising from the root of aorta, from the aortic sinuses. It has a right and the left coronary artery, and the right coronary artery will supply the right ventricle, right atrium, posterior part of left ventricle, posterior part of interventricular septum, and also the sinoatrial node. Coming to the left coronary artery, it will supply the left ventricle, left atrium, and some part of the interventricular septum. It also gives a branch to the bundle of His. But which artery will dominate? So the artery that gives the posterior interventricular artery determines the coronary dominance. If it is given by the right coronary artery, then it becomes right dominant. If it is given by the left coronary artery, it becomes left dominant. If it is supplied by both, then it becomes codominant. In 50% of the cases, the right coronary artery is dominant. In 20% of the cases, the left coronary artery is dominant. And in 30% of the cases, both the arteries are dominant. And the next one is collateral circulation. Collateral circulation is nothing but anastomosis. So it has the cardiac anastomosis and extracardiac anastomosis. The cardiac anastomosis takes place between the branches of the coronary arteries and the deep venous system. And the extracardiac anastomosis takes place between the branches of coronary artery with the vasa vasorum of aorta, vasa vasorum of pulmonary arteries, internal thoracic artery, and with the phrenic arteries. But when does this collateral circulation come into the picture? That is when the coronary arteries are blocked. So within few seconds or within few minutes after the main arteries get blocked, the collateral circulation opens up and it serves as a major supply of blood. This is about the blood supply. And now coming to the venous drainage. The venous blood is drained into the right atrium through the coronary sinus, anterior cardiac veins, and the Thebesian veins. As you can see here, this is the coronary sinus which is present on the posterior atrioventricular groove. The tributaries of the coronary sinus are the great cardiac vein, middle cardiac vein, small cardiac vein, posterior vein of left ventricle, and the oblique vein of the left ventricle. And coming to the anterior cardiac veins, it will drain the venous blood from the right ventricle to the right atrium. And coming to the Thebesian veins, these are also called vena cavae minimis. These are the small veins that are present in the musculature of the heart, and they will drain directly into the chambers of the heart. So this is about the arterial supply and the venous drainage of the heart. Now coming to the special characteristic features of the coronary blood flow. The coronary blood flow would be normally around 250 to 250 ml per minute, which is about 4 to 5% of the cardiac output. Under strenuous exercise conditions, the coronary blood flow increases to 2 liters per minute. The oxygen consumption of the cardiac tissue is about 70%, 75%, but for normal tissues, it would be around 25%, and the remaining oxygen will serve as oxygen reserve. But for the cardiac tissue or the cardiac muscle, it is utilizing 75%, that is, its oxygen reserve will be very less. If it demands extra oxygen and it also has low oxygen reserves, the only thing that could help is the increase of coronary blood flow. And coming to the next point, it utilizes fatty acids for energy, whereas the rest of the body will utilize the carbohydrates as their major source of energy. And next one is phasic changes. Now let us discuss about the phasic changes in detail. So the cardiac muscle will show the phasic changes. Generally, the heart contracts during systole, that is, it pumps out the blood during systole so that the rest of the body receives the blood. During diastole, it will expand, that is, the blood is received by the heart. Now coming to the functional divisions of the heart muscle will show functional divisions, that is, it has epicardium, myocardium, and inner endocardium. All these layers will experience the pressure gradient. So let us consider a blood vessel. So what happens during systole is it contracts towards the inside. So the pressure is exerted on the endocardium. So this blood vessel gets compressed and it does not receive any kind of blood flow, whereas the epicardium receives some amount of blood flow. So, and during diastole, the heart muscle will expand. So this blood vessel also expands and it receives blood flow. So summing up, during systole, the epicardium will receive some amount of blood flow, and during diastole, the endocardial vessels will expand or dilate. It will receive the maximum amount of blood flow. So let us look at the graph. On the x-axis, there is systole and the diastole. On the y-axis, there is a coronary blood flow. So during systole, the blood received is very low, but during the diastole, the blood received will be maximum. Changes of the heart. Now coming to the factors that controlling the coronary circulation, they are the local metabolites, nervous control, and the auto regulation. Firstly, the local metabolite. The oxygen is a major factor that regulates the coronary blood flow. But how? How does the oxygen will regulate the coronary blood flow? As we learned that it utilizes 75% of oxygen, that is, the cardiac oxygen reserves of the cardiac muscle are very low. if it requires any extra amount of oxygen, the solution will be to increase the coronary blood flow. So that same thing happens here. The oxygen consumption will lead to the release of vasodilator substances like nitric oxide, adenosine, H plus ion, carbon dioxide. This will dilate the blood vessels, leading to the increase of the coronary blood flow. Now coming to the nervous control, it has a direct effect and an indirect effect. The direct effect of the sympathetic leads to constriction and the parasympathetic will lead to dilation. We know this. Sympathetic causes constriction and the parasympathetic causes dilation. But the indirect effect of sympathetic causes dilation and the parasympathetic causes constriction. How does this happen? Let us look at this. First thing, activation of the sympathetic nervous system will lead to the release of epinephrine and the norepinephrine. This will increase the heart rate. It also increases the contractility, which increases the metabolism of the heart, which leads to the utilization of more amount of oxygen. As more amount of oxygen get consumed, this will lead to the release of the vasodilatory substances and it will dilate the blood vessels, leading to the increased blood flow. The same thing happens in the parasympathetic nervous system. It will lead to the release of the acetylcholine. This will decrease the heart rate, and this will lead to the constriction of the heart. So this is the indirect effect of the nervous system on the coronary blood flow. Now coming to the last regulation, that is auto-regulation. So what is auto-regulation? The one which can regulate their own blood flow is called auto-regulation. But there is a working range for this. It is 60 to 140 mm of Hg. But how does this takes place, or how it is explained? It is explained through the Bernoulli's hypothesis. It states that increase of heart rate will lead to the increased metabolism, which leads to the increased utilization of the ATP. So the ATP gets broken down to ADP and further AMP and further adenosine. And we know that adenosine is the most potent vasodilator out there. So it will dilate the blood vessels, leading to the increased coronary blood flow. So in this way, the heart regulates its own blood supply. I hope this is clear. Now coming to the coronary artery diseases, coronary artery occlusion, myocardial infarction and the angina pectoris. So first let us learn about atherosclerosis, because it is a major cause of the ischemic heart disease. So due to sedentary lifestyle or high blood pressure, the cholesterol gets deposited in the wall of the arteries, which further becomes fibrous and then it gets calcified, leading to the atherosclerosis of the blood vessels. Due to the atherosclerosis, the diameter of the blood vessels will be reduced. This will lead to partial blockage of the heart arteries. This will further reduce the blood flow to the heart. Now coming to the coronary artery disease, this is due to atherosclerosis, that is due to the narrowing of the blood vessels due to decreased blood supply. So it leads to the coronary artery disease. And in coronary artery disease, a coronary embolus is formed. And what is coronary embolus? The atherosclerosis will break down. This will provide an uneven surface for the blood flow. The later, the platelets get attached to it and further fibrin will deposit and also RBC will attach to this. This will lead to the formation of the coronary embolus. This coronary embolus will obstruct the blood flow. The only savior could be the collateral circulation. The collateral circulation is seen in the small arteries. So when the major arteries get blocked, within seconds or within few minutes, the collateral circulation opens up and it starts the blood flow. It serves as a major blood supply. But as the anastomosis is between the small arteries, the blood flown through the small arteries will not be sufficient to the heart. But as the time progresses, like a 1 month or so, the blood through the small arteries will become normal. So this is an healthy heart. So we can see here the fat deposition, and in this still more fat is deposited. So we can see here the platelets and the RBC got adherent to it and it is blocking the blood way. So this is coronary embolus, which will lead to the complete or the partial blockage of the artery and reduces the blood supply. Now coming to the myocardial infraction. Myocardial infraction is seen in that area of the cardiac tissue where it has a prolonged decrease of oxygen supply. This is due to the insufficient blood flow and it will lead to the necrosis of the cardiac tissue finally. So to compensate this, the local blood vessels will dilate and it will increase the blood flow. So it will utilize the oxygen, making the hemoglobin to deoxyhemoglobin. Because of this more amount of deoxyhemoglobin, the area will appear as a bluish brown color and the blood vessels will appear in a more engorged form. The most common infraction site is the subendocardial region because it needs the high amount of oxygen or it consumes high amount of oxygen and it is difficult to obtain the blood flow because it is present on the inner aspect. So the most common area for the infraction is the subendocardial region. Now coming to the angina pectoris or chest pain, this is due to the narrowing of coronary arteries so that the blood flow will be reduced, leading to the reduced amount of oxygen supply and the tissue will suffer from the ischemia. The pain is usually felt in the retrosternal region and it is referred to left arm and the left shoulder. But why only it is referred to left arm and left shoulder? Because the pain is usually referred to the ones which arise from the same embryological segments. And the pain is usually hot, pressing and the constrictory pain. Any amount of increase in cold temperature or stomach ache will increase the intensity of the pain. And the drug of choice in this condition, in the acute one, will be the nitroglycerin and the nitrate drugs. In the chronic condition, we might use beta blockers, ACE blockers and the calcium blockers. So if you can see here, the pain is usually radiated to left arm, left shoulder, left side of the neck and the left jaw. This is the referred pain of the angina pectoris. So in this session we have learned about the coronary vessels, coronary blood flow, factors affecting the coronary blood flow and also the coronary artery diseases. I hope this is clear.